You know, if gas prices are as high as they are, maybe I'll just have one.
Whatever that is.
I wonder if my house
Is your
would be
husband
designated
retired?
parking.
No, I didn't know if he was.
Nope, he is not.
Home and back.
I'm
Not yet. Anyway.
I'm going out on Ipers early. I will go
Deerfield's
early,
a
but
good area.
But the
I have
problem
been
is you got so many,
Walk away, I could walk
and that's
there,
just it.
grab one,
And at some
I
point,
wish he could.
drive it to work.
His work is very physical,
and he's getting, and this heat,
harder and
and this
harder.
heat,
Problem,
I'm
yeah,
sure
get
it's
out.
really
There
tough.
wouldn't be one there, and I'd be walking.
Not a day goes by, he's not
Yeah.
that machine and
I gotta
crawling
walk
there,
out.
and
Yeah.
It's a young man's job.
Anymore, yeah, yeah.
And, you know,
But-
he's actually 2 years older than me, but he doesn't have
It-
funds or anything,
yeah.
so
Do they have a 401? They have a 401 there? They don't even have that.
we've been doing some.
Right, yeah, but I mean, but they didn't.
Don't believe a word of it.
Not a
They
darn.
match, they do a small match.
Half of this is Bill. This isn't big enough yet, Bill says. We need some more stuff.
Less than a week's paycheck.
I think
So,
we're about
mean,
ready.
it's something that
But at least, yeah.
they,
Yeah, you forget about those things that,
an employer could have.
yeah, that you don't,
There's nothing that matches.
no, they're not very much. I, yeah.
Whenever I talk to employees about applying,
It might not be the salary, but in the long run, you're gonna have so much more. Yeah,
because I couldn't afford it.
right, yeah. Ipers is just a good force,
Yeah,
and you don't even know it's gone, because it's like, I never got it.
yep.
Call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Teresa.
Nelson. Orison.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Wunschel.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Reed. Falk.
Here.
Okay. Item 3 on the agenda, we have a presentation tonight by Vanessa Moore, our environmental educator. She's going to give us a recycling update, and she's got a program coming up on Thursday. So she'll tell us a little bit about that. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming in tonight.
Thank you guys for inviting me here today. I am the environmental coordinator here for the city of Spencer and for the Northern Regional Planning Area, which encompasses 4 counties here in Northwest Iowa. So we are looking to put together a program with the Spencer Public Library, and we will be doing that on Thursday, June 23rd at 6:30 p.m. And we will be presenting information about reducing waste, the benefits of composting, recycling, and material recovery. Dan, the superintendent at our city landfill in Grettinger, will also be there to talk about some of the things we do over at the landfill. They'll learn about different things about the cells that we use, some leachate that is a byproduct of what we put in the landfill, and some of the processes that we do to bury our garbage here in town. So we invite the public to come at 6:30 on Thursday evening at the Spencer Public Library. SMU will be rebroadcasting that as well. So we'll have that schedule out as well on our Facebook page.
Great. Now, before you go, any questions for Vanessa about either the program or with regard to recycling? Again, I want to thank you for coming in tonight, Vanessa. One thing I would say, I heard Vanessa on KICD the other day. She did a very nice job in promoting not only this program, but promoting recycling. And I think Spencer residents do a very nice job with regard to recycling. But she had a quiz.
I did. I
yeah.
quizzed Ryan Long on the radio station with some of the things, and he did pretty well. He was subject to Al, who was my predecessor. He was subjected to him, so I think he did some learning along the way before I got to him. So kudos to Al as well. Yeah.
And there are some new wrinkles with regard to recycling, and I think that you'll probably bring those up on Thursday as well.
Yeah, so recycling is constantly changing. There's different products that they can, be able to recycle. Things change. We do use a local processor in Lamar's that we send our recycling to. So things change with them as well, what they accept, what they don't accept. That was one of the changes we had this year, was that we weren't accepting plastic bags anymore in our recycling in our recycling. That was due to the change there. So there's lots of things that we can go over yearly, monthly, that change all the time. So if you want, you can follow us on Facebook on Spencer Recycling Basics, and we have a lot of information there. And you can ask us questions on there. You can for sure call me or Tom over at the transfer station as well if you have questions.
Okay, thanks again, Vanessa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Item 4, consent agenda. Item A is a motion to approve the city council minutes of June 6, 2022. B, licenses, approve special Class C liquor license with Sunday sales for Chen's Garden, Class E liquor license, Class C beer, Class B wine, Sunday sales and ownership update for Casey's, number 2877, and Class E liquor, Class C beer, Class B wine, Sunday sales and ownership update for Casey's, number 2902, all subject to final approval by the Iowa ABD. C is a motion to approve tobacco permits effective July 1, 2022 for Brew Oil, number 31, 32, and 40, C's Liquor, Cargo Express, Casey's, number 1894, number 2877, and number 2902, Fairway, Hy-Vee Store, Hy-Vee Gas, Tobacco Vape and EGIC, Walmart number 2714, and Walgreens number 11153. D is an ordinance amending Title 8, Chapter 1, Section 1 of the Spencer City Code concerning construction permits, first filing. E is a motion to approve agreements for community benefits service for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022, from Clay County Fair and Events Center, Clay County Heritage Center, People for Pets CASA, Clay County Convention and Visitors Bureau, Spencer Main Street, and Iowa Lakes Corridor.
And the chambers on the end there.
And the chamber.
Yes.
Thank you. I think that's it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, the consent agenda.
Motion made by Donovan. Second by Bill. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orison, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
Item 5, we have a couple of public hearings on the agenda tonight. A is a public hearing on amendment number 2 to the City of Spencer budget for fiscal year ending June 30, 2022. I declare the public hearing now open. Are there any written comments against?
We have none.
Any oral comments against? Any written comments in favor of?
We have none.
Any oral comments in favor of? I declare the public hearing now closed. Item 5A1 is a resolution amending the current budget for fiscal year ending June 30, 2022.
I'd introduce that resolution.
Motion made by Bill.
I'll second.
Second by Brian. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orison, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
Item 5B is a public hearing on proposed sale of city real property legally described as Lot 5, Industrial Center, First Edition, to Brian Bland, DBA Custom Cut Meats. I declare the public hearing now open. Any written comments against?
We have none.
Any oral comments against? Any written comments in favor of?
We have none.
Any oral comments in favor of? I declare the public hearing now closed. Item B2 is a resolution approving the sale of city real property legally described as Lot 5 of the Green Industrial Center, First Edition, to the City of Spencer, Clay County, Iowa, to Brian Bland.
So moved.
Motion made by Lauren,
Second.
second by Tracy. Any discussion?
Hey, Don, I didn't read in this, is there anything on stipulation on time of getting the property up and built and stuff in this contract or not?
Yes, it's incorporated from the green covenants, which require
building to be completed within 24 months.
Okay, okay, so there was in the bylaws on that. All right, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orison, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Balk, I.
Hey, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank Brian for moving to the city of Spencer. I guess we didn't put that in the comments, but look forward to you starting with the process, and good luck and congratulations, yeah.
Thank you, Ron, for those comments. Item 6, under old business. Item A is an ordinance amending Title IV, Chapter 5, Section 21 of the Spencer City Code concerning solid waste rates and charges. This is the final filing. Motion made by Tom.
Second.
Second by Donovan. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orison, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Balk, I.
Item B is an ordinance amending Title IV, Chapter 4, Section 11 of the Spencer City Code concerning wastewater service charges, and this is the final filing. Motion made by Bill,
I'll second that.
second by Ron. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orison, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Balk, I.
Item C is an ordinance adopting Title 8, Chapter 1, Section 8 of the Spencer City Code concerning use of city real property and easements. This, too, is the final filing.
I'll introduce it.
Motion made by Donovan. Second by Tom. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orison, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Balk, I.
Item D is an ordinance amending Title IX, Chapter 2, Section 1 of the Spencer City Code to adopt a definition of dwelling triplex and amending Title IX, Chapter 3, Section 1, Subsection A of the Spencer City Code to allow dwelling triplex as a permitted use in the A residential zoning district. This is the second filing.
So moved.
Motion made by Lauren. Second by Bill. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orison, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Balk, I.
Okay, under new business, item 7, we have items A, B, and C, basically call for some conversation and resolutions, with regard to urban renewal areas and tax increment financing districts and so forth. So I'd like to call on our finance director, Brian Weave, to just talk a little bit about those prior to us putting them into the record and then having discussion. And there may be other questions for you, Brian, after they're entered into the record.
Sure. So 7A and B are closely related. When we establish a TIF district and it's geared towards economic development, it has a lifespan of 20 years from the first time that we certify debt against that district. And so that district, what we're talking about specifically one lot here. It's lot 2 of the Walmart addition, I believe is what is. It's where the Pine Tree Plaza or the old Staples building where TJ Maxx is going, et cetera, however you want to refer to it, that lot. So the entire district, as we look at, is essentially the Walmart area, the South Park Mall, right there along 71, even into Menards for the general of it. The bulk of that has now reached its 20-year lifespan at the end of, well, 2 weeks from now. And so, in order for us to move forward with the development agreement that's been proposed for the Pine Tree Plaza area, we have to do some housekeeping things. One of it is we have to delete that parcel out of the current district, which is what 7A does, is it removes it from the urban renewal area. 7B is an ordinance, so every time we introduce a new area, we pass an ordinance, which then is what authorizes the county to divide the taxes in accordance with the urban renewal law and actually give us the increment. And so 7B is deleting that property from the current TIF revenue ordinance. And since it is housekeeping, that's why you'll see we've looked at is just trying to delete it all in the 3 readings tonight. And then 7C is setting a public hearing for, on the re-addition of that property back into the urban renewal area, and reestablishing that. So then what happens is the property goes back in, but it goes in at today's value. And so really what happens is that base value that the increment is calculated off of gets reset to today's value instead of 20 years ago. And then there will be following up with an ordinance to redivide the taxes. And so while the rest of that district is expiring, what we've talked about with our bonding attorneys and that is instead of just putting the whole district back in and dividing taxes, is it'll be kind of go back in now as a piecemeal. So if we have another project that's in that existing area, we'll kind of do that same thing. We'll delete it out and then add it back in so that its time clock can start. And you're going to see this now that this is the first area where we're hitting our 20-year mark. You'll start seeing this potentially not necessarily quite often, but we'll be going through these procedures in certain areas of town. And so then the other thing that C does is that as we do projects, before we can expend money on them or enter into agreements in that, we have to include and amend our urban renewal plan, which lists out all the projects that the council has authorized. And so you'll see 2 projects being proposed in there. One is obviously the development agreement for the TJ Maxx. 2 is the project that we've discussed up north with land infrastructure. While that isn't necessarily, council hasn't finalized anything of that before we can even move on that. If the council so wishes in the future, we have to include in our plan before we can expend money on it. So it's been done now just because of, once I think that project, if the council decides to move on it, it'll be quickly moving. So that's why it's in there at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate that. We'll now move on, and if there are questions after the resolution is entered and we have a second, it would then be okay to ask Brian any more clarifying questions. Item A is a resolution deleting property from the Spencer Consolidated Urban Renewal Areas.
So moved.
Motion made by Donovan. Second by Tom. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orison, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Balk, I.
Item B is an ordinance deleting property from the tax increment financing district for the Spencer Consolidated Urban Renewal Areas of the City of Spencer, Iowa, pursuant to Section 403.19 of the Code of Iowa. This is the first filing. Motion made by Bill.
Second.
Second by Tracy. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orison, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Balk, I.
B1 is to waive the final filing and proceed to final consideration. Motion made by Bill.
Second.
Second by Lauren. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
And B2 is an ordinance deleting property from the tax increment financing district for the Spencer Consolidated Urban Renewal Areas of the City of Spencer, Iowa, pursuant to Section 403.19 of the Code of Iowa, final filing. Motion made by Tom. Second by Brian. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
And finally, with regard to this issue, item C is a resolution setting the date for the public hearing on designation of the expanded Spencer Consolidated Urban Renewal Areas and on Urban Renewal Plan Amendment. The hearing date, July 18, 2022, 6:30 p.m.
I'll make a motion on that.
Motion made by Ron,
Second.
second by Lauren. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
Okay, item D is a motion to approve the 2022-2023 General Engineering Services Agreement with Bolton and Mink, Inc. Motion made by Tom.
Second.
Second by Donovan. Any discussion?
So Dan, this is just a general agreement. We don't have any projects going on with them right now, right? With Bolton and Mink, or is this just,
This isn't on a specific project. We do have a project with traffic signals going on with them, but this
okay,
is.
that is with
But that isn't, that's part of a different, this is just a general agreement for future projects.
Right, yeah, that's what I thought, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item E is a motion to approve $13,000 payment to the Clay County Fair and Events Center towards final cost of Outrageous Performing Arts event as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. Motion made by Bill.
I'll second.
Second by Brian. Any discussion?
Mayor, just
Yes.
what I'd like to say, we had that conversation and I talked to the fair board and stuff, and I'm gonna vote against it because I really felt that we should have been brought up before the event was, and that should have been when our vote was, so I respect the fair and what they do out there, but I just feel that maybe now we have the process set up that we don't get into this situation again.
Yeah, and I think, Ron, that is an important point that you bring up, that there is a process moving forward. Jeremy Parsons has brought forward a plan with regard to how the money will be utilized next year. And that one point I would like to make is this is not additional money
Right.
that the city is giving the fair. It had been allotted.
Correct.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Item F is a resolution approving and confirming fees and charges imposed by the City of Spencer.
So moved.
Motion made by Ron,
Second.
second by Donovan. Any discussion? One thing before we vote, that I would like to point out, I appreciate the work that staff has done with regard to this issue to consolidate the fees and charges that the city imposes. And as I understand it, I'm not sure exactly what the timetable is on this, but it will be on the city website at some point in the very near future. So with that, please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
Item G is a motion to award proposal for facility condition and needs assessment plan to ISG Inc., Storm Lake, Iowa, for not to exceed $49,930. Motion made by Bill
I'll second that.
and seconded by Ron. And I don't know if Dan or Mark, who are pretty much involved with this study, would like to explain how we came to this to award it and what the study is going to do.
Good
Thanks,
evening.
Mark.
Certainly. Through our capital improvement planning, we had been adding a couple buildings kind of towards the end, towards the 5th year, and some of our facilities are starting to age. Just as an example, it's hard to believe our street division is 40 years old. And we can't get the, raise the garbage trucks up high enough to be able to work inside. And so I had put, we need an addition into the capital improvement plan, but we didn't quite know what we needed at that point. And then that just kind of morphed along, hey, we should look at this facility and other ones as well. So to be able to do sound and prudent planning, we felt it was important to get our arms around where we're at with the condition of our facilities, and that's where we started talking about a facilities plan. So then with a lot of help with Anna Harmon from the office, we sent out a request for proposals. We evaluated 4 different companies, and ISG has worked with Clay County's facility plan as well and scored unanimously high through at the top through our staff that did the scoring program or process, and we're comfortable, and they came in at the lowest cost as well. So we felt it was the right thing to do to make a recommendation to have a completion date, hopefully it is in the fall, and then that will hopefully segue or tie right into our capital improvement planning that starts again. So Brian and I talk about that. It's just like an endless cycle, it's the end of the fiscal year already, and then we start the next process, and it won't be too many months more, and we'll be starting on the capital improvement plan. So,
Okay. Any questions for Mark on this?
Mark, kind of to that point, or maybe Dan, it looked like we had an October 5th deadline set, but I see, and I don't know if it was ISG, but somebody questioned how firm we were on that deadline.
that was early on that was one of the other folks. ISG says we will make the deadline.
Okay, so
They
we can
said-
expect it
Yep,
no later
they
than
said, it was interesting with the interview process, Brian. They said, we haven't missed a deadline yet, and we won't miss this one. I'm like, oh, that's pretty confident. We'll feel good about that, so.
Yeah, and I would like to compliment the staff again on the process that you used with regard to selecting these folks. They came in, they were all given a tour of the facilities and shown the facilities, and I think it was very nice tour for them, and the whole process seemed to work kind of seamlessly.
I thought it was fair and thorough and objective, so.
Yep. Okay, thanks. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item H is a motion to approve information technical services agreements with Solutions, Inc. for city facilities and the police department. Motion made by Tom. Second by Tracy. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item I is a resolution reducing the number of members of the Renaissance Committee, Sales Tax Advisory Committee, from 9 members to 7 members, and this recommendation comes from the Renaissance Committee. So moved. Motion made by Donovan. Second by Brian. Any discussion?
Tom, are you still on the Renaissance? Okay. And just thought it was just too cumbersome to get 9 people, or just?
Hard to get 9 people to a meeting.
That's what yeah, just too cumbersome. Right.
7 people can easily make these decisions.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. And I would re-emphasize that 9 members on a board is pretty cumbersome. 7 is a much more manageable number. It was tough getting a quorum anyway, and they only meet 2 times a year, I think, isn't it, Tom? So, yeah. Okay.
Those are 2 powerful meetings.
Well, that's what I understand, and, yeah, certainly understand. But, well, that said, the Renaissance Committee does do some good work, and they allocate money to some very good projects that go on throughout the community.
I've been on it since it started, and it's, very, some very good projects come through.
Yep. Okay, so please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
Item J is a motion to approve quotes for demolition and removal of unsafe structure at 601 6th Avenue East. Site Services, Inc., quote for $23,685 for asbestos abatement and disposal, and Muddy Creek Contracting, quote for $12,400 to cap utilities, clean up materials, and fill and grade the lot. Okay, let's see, I think Donovan got the first, and Bill got the second. It's pretty close. Okay. Alec, would you like to speak to this just briefly?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So this property we talked about last meeting to condemn it and knock it down. These quotes came in prior to that meeting, but once you had given power to go and do, I went out with the site service folks to see if they would be able to just test and abate the asbestos itself without having to take the entire structure and treat it all as asbestos-containing materials. That's not going to happen. They're going to have to take the entire building because it's been open to the elements, because of the state of the fire and because of the state of the building. They're not able to get in there and do it safely. So they will remove that entire structure. That's your first quote there. And then Muddy Creek would come in and take care of the remaining. Obviously, we'll get in there and cap the utilities prior so that it's not a nightmare trying to find them after the building is gone. But those were the 2 quotes we did receive. I sent it out to a number of folks on our contracting list, 2 of which are able to do the asbestos that we would need, and these were the only 2 that came in.
Okay. Any questions for Alec? Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item K is a motion for action to rescind the CLG grant for second floor accessibility study as recommended by the Historic Preservation Commission. Motion made by Bill.
Second.
Second by Tracy. Any discussion?
Can somebody explain it? Why are we resending it?
Yeah. It's unfortunate that we have to rescind it.
Previously, the council had approved a little over $5,000 match to this $15,000 grant that we had gotten from the state to do the second floor study. We started looking for people to do this in March with an RFP, sent it out to the approved list that the state had given us, and we were unsuccessful in getting any proposals. So I worked with the state. We broadened some of the deadlines. We specifically talked more about the meetings and the requirements for some of those meetings, trying to make them more virtual, trying to make it more open to the feedback that we had gotten from the contractors that I was able to talk to after that first round, they had said they didn't have staff, the budget was not something that would line up for them, and those types of things. That was when I was talking to the contractors. So then we resent out the RFP for another month to even more contractors that I was able to, or firms that would be able to do this type of work that the state helped me with. And again, I was unsuccessful in getting those folks to bid on the work. In conversation again with them, they felt that the budget to go through the entire downtown second floor was not something they could meet, as well as staffing that a lot of these firms had. And so in conversation with the state, and I talked to them again today, they've seen it. It's happened where we've been unable to get these projects off the ground. And it does not show poorly on Spencer at all for any of this. They are happy to see any project that we come forward with in the future. It just didn't work out for this one, and with no immediate result for this study that I would have, I can't push it any harder.
Okay.
What kind of budget were they thinking would be necessary?
So originally, when we started looking at a downtown inventory of what's in our second floor, I started getting some quotes for just to basically what's up there, square footage that's available, condition that it's in, and what could we do with it. They were quoting in the $100,000 range. So we tried to pull that scope back just to look at how do we get to the second floors? What options could be available to help people make better use of their second floors? And that's the study that we kind of crafted for this RFP that we were pushing for, and that's what we received the grant for. But again, we were unsuccessful in getting that off the ground.
As I recall, the grant was for $15,000,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
And there was a $5,000 match.
Yeah, we were in that
from the city.
$22,062 range
Okay.
for the total project for a consultant to come in. We have some matching as far as staff time and research on that end, but those were the dollars.
Yeah. Right.
So we're not done though. We're going to keep looking for other ways to try and promote growth in our downtown. It's just we'll have to take a different whack at it.
Okay. Any other questions for Alec?
Are there still some incentives downtown for the downtown owners down there?
From the city point of view,
Yes, didn't we have some tax incentives down there and?
yeah, we've got other different options as far as upgrading your buildings and stuff like that. But if you're looking at like your TIF and tax, that's all based on the amount of value added to the property, and it's very hard to do with existing structures.
Right.
If you're looking at specific commercial or rent or commercial or residential programs that the city has for those, I'm not as familiar with them. But if we're looking at other outside examples, the Main Street Challenge grant has been successful for the city of Spencer, utilizing some of the historic studies that we've done in the past. The design guidelines was as one of them. So they've been successful at that, and I hear they're looking at another. So things like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alec.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Okay. Anything else? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item L is a motion to approve change order to 2022 Cotton's Addition Storm Sewer Extension Project to reflect as-built project quantities. Motion made by Tom. Second by Lauren. Any discussion?
Question.
Yeah,
Was
Ron.
there one before that for accepting the work first, or was resolution accepting work on Cotton?
That one's after.
That one's gonna be after.
Yeah.
That's coming
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're just a step ahead of us, Ron.
Oh, I see it there.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item M is a resolution accepting work on 2022 Cotton's Edition Storm Sewer Extension Project.
So moved.
Motion made by Ron, second by Lauren. Any discussion? Please
Be
vote.
pretty bad if we accepted the change order and not the project.
Right, yeah.
It might not look good.
You can do
But-
just the change order.
You can, you're the maker of your own decision. Okay, please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
In much the same vein, N is a motion to approve change order to 2022 Drainage District Number 47 outlet project to reflect as-built project quantities. Motion made by Bill. Second by Tracy. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. O is a resolution accepting work on the 2022 Drainage District Number 47 outlet project.
So moved.
Motion made by Donovan. Second by Tom. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
Okay, item P deals with the 2022 25th Street and 11th Avenue Southwest project proceedings. There are 3 items under P that we'll be voting on tonight, and I've asked Ross to come forward and talk about those 3 items with regard to this project. And if we have any questions, we can ask Ross now. We can also ask Ross after we enter the specific items into the record.
Good evening, everyone. Just going to give you a brief update on the project here. This is a project that was requested by multiple property owners on the north side of 25th Street Southwest and 11th Avenue Southwest, adjacent to Hagedorn's first, second, and third additions on the southwest side of Spencer. I guess I'm just going to run through the numbers here involved with item P. The first item is the preliminary resolution pursuant to section 384.42 of the Iowa Code. And that resolution pretty much states that the city will be constructing public improvements within the city and that a portion of the cost will be assessed to the property owners. It also states that the city has hired Cruz Kate Nelson to administer the project. Number 2 there is a resolution approving and adopting preliminary plans and specifications, estimate of cost, and plat of schedule. I would note that this item also includes the approval of valuations of the property. And on this item, I would direct you to the valuation sheet in the handouts that I provided today. That's the first sheet in the packet. It's pretty typical with ag land in these type of projects that the assessed values don't carry the preliminary assessments, as the assessed values are in the courthouse, the assessor's office. Typically, those can be quite a bit lower than actual market value values. And so we've worked with Dorsey and Whitney to establish market values based on the average 2021 sales, which is provided on the Clay County Assessor's webpage. And you'll see down there that towards the bottom of the page, the assessable acres, the average CSRs for the property, which is provided by the assessor's office, and then the dollars per CSR kind of gives us our 2021 basis there per acre. And so I would direct you back up to the top of the page. You'll see the valuation based on the 2021 average price, and then you can compare that to the 25% valuation all the way to the right. And the valuation is, that 25% valuation is based on the preliminary assessment. And that's quite a bit lower than the value that's established by the 2021 market values. So just want to kind of bring that to your attention so you can see that you're accepting this valuation, so doesn't create a deficiency in the schedule. And that's for parcels 25 and 26, the ag land, that you can see on the plat there. And then, let's see, item 3 down here, that's the resolution of necessity. That's setting the public hearing date for July 18th, 2022 at 6:30 PM. If these items are approved tonight, we'll work with Teresa to get preliminary assessments sent out, probably kind of as soon as we can here. That'll give everybody a chance to take a look at the assessments. At that time, if they have questions, they can contact us and we can talk through some of the stuff. And then obviously at the public hearing, that would be the chance for the public to comment or proceed with what they think of the project. So, any questions before you run through the items?
Anyone have any questions for Ross?
None of the owners have seen this yet.
They haven't seen these numbers yet, no. We had a committee meeting early on, and those numbers were a little bit lower than what they're going to see for their preliminary assessments. Some of that's based on the decisions that we've made in the schedule, and also the inflation of costs that we've seen in construction. And costs seem to be quite a bit higher than they were even a year ago, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ross. Okay, moving on.
Can I make one comment, Mayor? Quick?
Sure, Brian.
Just for those newer to the council or newer to assessments, that the values that the assessments that are set here are the maximum. So, so the process goes is that these notices are sent out once the project is constructed. The assessments are then reconfigured based on actuals, and so they may be lower. But if they come in higher, then the city is, I don't want to say on the hook, but we pick up the difference. So these are the maximum that can be assessed out to a parcel. So they, at the end of the day, when the final assessments are done, this would be the theoretical highest they could be. They could be lower based on actual costs as well, so.
Okay.
Just add that in since.
Nope, duly
It's
noted.
been a while since we've had an assessment project.
Right, yeah, I see Ross,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I'm back. And I would add to Brian's comments, when we put these preliminary estimates together, we try and cover what could be the worst-case scenario. Just like Brian said, these are the maximum assessments that can be levied. And hopefully, our estimates are conservative and the numbers as bid are a lot better than what we're seeing on the sheet, so.
Okay.
I've got a question. Realizing none of this has been future platted for what goes next. If it is platted, then if there would there be a road possibly running on the same area as where this sewer is running? So that the new homes would have sewer in the front yard instead of the backyard?
So I think we've kind of touched on that several times, and it's really hard to have a crystal ball to know
Right,
what's going to
understand.
happen in developments. And so in the schedule, you'll see, if you turn to the back page, we've talked about parallel mains several times in the committee meetings. And kind of due to that, we've reduced the assessments on the west side of the properties to account for that. And so, the owner or developer of the farmland is really paying for the main on the south side of their property, which is really going to be usable for them.
Right.
And so, yeah, unfortunately, there's a good chance that however this is laid out, this main on the south side could be in the backyards of properties.
On both sides?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of just unfortunate, ideally, there would have been a main down 25th Street, but there wasn't a stomach for that at the time, is what I've understood. And so, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
All right. And then for these property owners, again, based upon what from the city standpoint, they have a 10-year period before which they have to hook up or a 5-year, and then is it a renewal or an inspection after 5?
That's correct.
To extend it for
So
another
yeah,
five.
they have 5 years to hook up to the new sewer main, and then I think after an inspection, probably by a licensed inspector, they can get an additional 5 years onto that period. to continue before they hook up. You know, at the same time, these are preliminary assessments and not connection fee. So it's actually a 10-year term that they have to pay the assessments, so it doesn't all have to be paid at one time.
Is there an advantage cost-wise, realizing you got inflation, 5 years down the road, they decide they want to do it, is there an advantage to hook up while you've got the sewer line open for those people to hook up?
You know, we had the same scenario in 2018 on the south side of the road, and most of those property owners didn't, you know, a few of them inquired, but they didn't do it immediately. Sometimes it kind of depends on who the contractor is. You know, if we get a big contractor in here, they might not want to mess with doing sewer service work. Some of them might. That might be right up some of their alley. So I think there's a lot of variables in how that can happen. So
I think there's those potential questions that, when they first see this,
yep,
what are my options, and where do I save money in order to do it?
that's right. Yeah, you know, you can always save, a lot of times you can save money if you have contractors there, you know, they've already moved in and they've got all their equipment there and their labor force and they have what they need to do that type of work. But I would say it's very dependent on who the contractor is and if they're willing to do the work. And
Mr. Mayor, maybe one
Yeah.
perhaps final point on the assessment schedule certainly financial significance to the city is the ag land deferral. Property such as the ag land involved that was discussed, so long as it's taxed and used as agricultural property, defers the assessment. And the effect is if in 5 years it's converted to residential, then the assessment schedule starts and continues for 10 years. If it's 20 years before that happens, no assessment till then, and then the 10-year assessment starts.
Okay.
And of course, the city has to pick up whatever is subject to ag land deferral in the interim.
Right. And to Bill's point, Ross, this is the same program basically that we did use with regard to the south side of 25th Street, correct?
well, it's pretty similar, I would say.
Okay.
There was some commercial properties involved in that project that were really driving the project, I should say.
But in terms of the hookup and the scheduling and that sort of thing, it's basically the same.
Correct. So, you know, it's assessments based on the city's assessment policy.
Okay.
And it's the same thing with, hookups and the term of the assessments and the term of the septic tank use and everything else that they have.
Yep.
So,
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Unless you're called upon again. Okay. Item P1 is preliminary resolution pursuant to section 384.42 of the Iowa Code covering the 2022 25th Street and 11th Avenue Southwest Sewer Extension Project.
So moved.
Motion made by Ron. Second by Bill. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Balk, I.
Item P2 is a resolution approving and adopting preliminary plans and specifications, estimate of cost and plat and schedule for the 2022 25th Street and 11th Avenue Southwest project. Motion made by Tom. Second by Tracy. Any discussion? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Balk, I.
And item P3 is a proposed resolution of necessity for 2022 25th Street and 11th Avenue Southwest Sewer Extension Project. The hearing date, July 18, 2022, 6:30 p.m.
I'll introduce it.
Motion made by Donovan,
I'll second it.
second by Ron. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have this projects down in my neighborhood, and I have had a couple people talk to me. They're still, I said, told them that the assessments were gonna be higher. I mean, I think they understand it. I think when we talked to Don, this is, I mean, even when people try to sell those houses down there, they're gonna have to bring up the septic system up to date. So before they could sell those properties, this will allow them without that stipulation into selling those homes down in that area. But also, you know, I know it's gonna be expensive, and I think, you know, everybody's, the two people that I talked to were still in favor, and I'm happy that they came forward and are showing support for it, you know. I know this is gonna be a different when they get these assessments, but, you know, when did you say the 18th? Is that when the meeting will be for the, okay.
Second meeting.
Second meeting in July?
That's what we're voting on.
Yep, I know. I was just figuring remembering the date, so, yep, so setting the date there. When will they put the project, you'll put the project out for bid after that? What time of frame are we looking at getting that bid, or to start finalizing it?
Yeah, I think it's, assuming things pass and go through,
Right.
We can have things ready pretty quickly to go out for bids.
Okay.
A little hard for us to spend a lot of time on it until we know that it's gonna move forward.
Right.
But we've got a bunch of information already, so
Right,
it's,
exactly.
it should go together pretty quickly, and yeah, I would think we could go out and take bids by the middle of August. So,
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Not? Please vote by machine.
Nelson, I. Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I. Bulk, I.
Item 8, welcome back. Engineers report, Ross.
You guys are gonna get tired of hearing from me. Quick update on a few projects we have going on. Down at the West Leach Park Boat Ramp Replacement Project, there still hasn't been any progress on that. The good news is the river's on its way down. It's gone down about 1.5 feet in the last 10 days, so it's going down, but it's going down slow, and it looks hot and dry from the extended forecast here. So hopefully by the end of the week or the beginning of next week, they'll be able to get started on the ramp. Over at the PD parking lot, Diamond Concrete poured about a third or about a half actually of the concrete work on Friday. They had a pour set up today, but they figured with the hot, dry, windy weather, they better wait, so they'll be pouring at 6 tomorrow morning. And then hopefully finish up the concrete work there by the end of the week. At the airport terminal, they got started out there removing the siding and soffit on the project. The underlying plywood sheeting was rotten and will need to be replaced, which I think they had an idea that might happen, but it is probably going to be an extra in that project. And they've got the roof approximately half replaced at this time. On the rocket slide project, it seems to be moving along pretty quickly. They got the foundation poured last week, and Jim said today they had a portion of the slide temporarily up, just to kind of fit it to the foundation, but it'll be coming back down. But hopefully by the end of the week, it'll be getting close. So the project's moving along well. And the other email I got today was for the West 4th Street overlay project. There's some concrete work to finish on that project, and that contractor is scheduled to be here Friday to start that work. Pillar construction has about 2 weeks of work left on that project, and we'll get that finished up. So, any questions?
Question on that one, was there a deadline, and is there some
There's
fees being charged for the?
Yeah,
delay?
there's a working day contract, and then last fall we added some additional curb and gutter work that we're giving them a little extended period of time. So we're trying to work with them, but yeah, there's also working days, and there's probably going to be some liquidated damages. So,
Thank you.
any questions?
Thank you, Ross.
All right, thank you.
Item 9, city managers report.
I have a couple of things. Got a phone call today from a developer looking at putting in about 50 housing units. They're gonna try to apply for a workforce housing grant, which means that the city council will need to adopt a resolution in support of that. Unfortunately, his deadline is July 1st, so we aren't gonna have another meeting, but apparently the state would take a letter of support from the city in lieu of that until the next council meeting, which I'm working with the developer on putting that together to get them going with their application. So hopefully that all comes together. Talked with some commercial developers last week. There's a potential project down in South Spencer. We don't know much about it yet. It's pretty early, but hopefully that comes together. And we're meeting later in the week to hammer out the purchase agreement for the North Y project later this week.
Okay, any questions for Dan? Okay, item 10, under the mayor's report, I would entertain a motion approving the following board and commission appointments effective July 1, 2022. To the Renaissance Initiative, Tom Nelson and Jeremy Liu. Their terms would expire June 30, 2025. And to Zoning Board of Adjustment, Dean Meckler, whose term would expire June 30, 2027. Motion made by Bill.
Second.
Second by Donovan. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The other thing that I have to report today, you may have noticed that you didn't get any mail. The banks were closed as a result of the Juneteenth holiday. And as a former history teacher, I'm somewhat embarrassed to say that I didn't know much about Juneteenth until relatively recently. And Juneteenth is the actual commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States in June of 1865, 2 months after Appomattox, after General Lee surrendered the Confederate Army to General Grant, and 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation given by President Lincoln. So this is the second year that Juneteenth has been celebrated as a national holiday and probably long overdue. And that's all I have unless there are questions. Okay, item 11, council and committee reports.
Of course, we have the regular meeting. Note that that's Tuesday, July 5th, because we're not meeting on July 4th. We have a committee of the whole scheduled for the 11th to tour the wastewater treatment plant and the landfill, so that'll be a great fun bus tour if it's 100 degrees, but probably smell great too. We need to schedule a finance committee meeting for the fiscal year end meeting, and we need to also schedule a long-term planning meeting to go over some of the stuff we're putting together on some of the property that we've recently purchased.
Okay, any questions?
Does that finance committee need to meet before, not before year end?
We are looking probably late next week before, because we'll have some things that'll go on the July 5th meeting. I'll send an email out to the 3 committee members, but just kind of heads up, we'll be looking towards the end of next week.
Okay,
So
all right.
should be about a 10-minute meeting. It's or 15, I guess, that
I'll make a
we'll kind of go
motion on
over. Kind of go over year-end transfers and stuff once we have an idea of where the fiscal year is going to end.
Okay, now if we could only do that for council meetings, right? Yeah. Okay. So, item 12, the motion to approve the bills and claims. Motion made by Bill. Second by Brian. Any discussion?
Mayor, I'd ask the council that we will add that, the 13,000 that is approved for the fair tonight, so it gets paid within the fiscal year.
Okay,
So it was part of the motion.
part of the motion. You're okay with the second?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 13, any other business and opportunity to address the council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Donovan, second? Who's got the second? Tom? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned.
Wow, you did great.
Not bad.
That's a lot of stuff.
63 minutes
That is fantastic.
with Pete.
I wouldn't have guessed it.